Hi, and welcome to the MHS PSAT 10-Day Challenge. Today is day one, and we'll be looking at some specific tips and strategies that you can use to help you immediately improve your performance on the PSAT test. So before we get started, I just want to remind you that we have 10 days to cover some basic strategies. These won't deal with specifics like particular types of math problems or particular types of grammar instruction, but they'll go over some general rules and strategies that you can use. So any help that you can in integrating these practices into your actual test taking will be an advantage for you. I want to start with a reminder to you that the PSAT will be given to students October 13th, 2021. Now, not every student in the school will be taking the PSAT or the SAT. As a junior, you've selected the option of taking this test. As a sophomore, all of you will be taking it, and then as freshmen, the selected ones who have chosen to take it will be taking the PSAT. So please look for announcements, look for postings that will tell you where your testing rooms will be located and how that day will run for those of you who aren't taking the PSAT, as well as those of you who are. All right, so let's start with our first general test taking strategy, the 10-second rule. So one of the big problems that students face when they take these standardized tests is time. They feel very pressured and crunched to finish all the sections within the allotted time period that's given. Now, this is true certainly on some sections, while it may not be true on others. But a 10-second rule is a good rule of thumb to follow. So the first thing I'd recommend for you is to time yourself, and not doing a test in particular or any particular type of task, but just get a feel within your body clock, your internal clock, for how long 10 seconds is. Run the clock, set it up several times so you have this internal feel. The worst thing you can do on the PSAT, SAT, or ACT is to be a clock watcher. And that means you spend more time glancing up at the clock than you are glancing down at the paper. Remember, a good strategy for all of us is to stay on task. Any time spent off of the test itself or off of solving problems on the test itself is time wasted. It's time that we can't get back. So the 10-second rule allows you to kind of have a self-understanding of how much time you're spending. And within the first 10 seconds, if a problem does not, like if you don't understand what the question is asking you after 10 seconds, then what I want you to do is put a little question mark next to that question. It's one you're going to come back to, but we're skipping it for now and we'll come back to it later. We may not be seeing it, we may be blocked because of nerves, because of anxiety, because of the previous problem we just solved, whatever. But if it's taking longer than 10 seconds, we need to really move on, and perhaps having a fresher set of eyes or a fresher attitude coming in, we'll be able to see it another time a little more quickly. The second strategy or tip I'd like to offer is that remember to answer everything. Don't leave anything blank. So as you're going through the test, you do not get counted off if you miss a problem or skip a problem. You only receive points for those questions that you provide an answer for and that answer is correct. So skipping a question doesn't even give you a chance to answer it correctly. Guessing would be better. But what you want to make sure is that you make a smart, informed decision for guessing. So here's a strategy you might think about. If you're at the end of the test, let's say you have 2 minutes and you have 10 math questions left to do. There's no way in those 2 minutes that you can solve all 10 of those questions. But you know that a couple of them look doable. So what I want you to do is quickly look at your answer sheet and take notice of how many answer choices you have that are marked A, marked B, marked C, etc. Now, these types of tests, these standardized tests, are randomized, which means that there should be an equal number of A answers and roughly an equal number of B answers, an equal number of C answers and D. If you notice in your quick scan that you don't really have a lot of B choices or A choices, then that's the letter that you're going to guess for those that you're just going to randomly be bubbling in. You'll stand a much better chance of having a greater percentage of those be accurate if you do so. So again, there's not any science behind like most of the answers are B or most of the answers are C. Instead, you get this nice variety of answer choices. So you'll have an equal number of A, B, C, D, E, if that's even an option for you. So keep that in mind. If you're stumped, try to eliminate as much as possible. If you don't even get a chance to eliminate, try choosing the letter choice that is least used on your answer sheet, and that should be a tip and strategy for you. A big time waster for a lot of students leads us to tip number 3, and that's waiting until the end of the test to try to bubble and then running out of time before you've bubbled everything, and suddenly you've only answered half the questions and the proctor has taken up the test from you. So what you should do, what I would recommend you do, is bubble in chunks. And one of the easiest ways you can do that is as you complete a page, bubble for that page. Most test pages will have anywhere from 2 to 4 and possibly even 5 questions on them. So about every 5th question, bubble. You should be able to keep track and not lose track of what number you're on. But you need to make sure that before you're finished, the time is called, that you have bubbled all answer choices, or at least bubbled something for an answer choice in those. So bubbling in chunks is a very good strategy to follow. The 4th strategy we'll look at is the ATQA strategy, answer the question that's asked. Now, many students will miss a problem, particularly in the math section, by not carefully reading what the question is asking you for. Always read until the end of the question so that you know specifically what it's asking for. And often, by knowing what it's asking for, you can eliminate some choices by easily looking and saying, whoa, that doesn't have anything to do with what it's asking for. So always try to approach the question as if every question has an answer, and then make sure you understand exactly what question is being asked of you in this particular question. In testing, as in life, don't fall in love with the wrong answer. Looking at a question over and over again and trying to tell yourself it just does, I think it's got to be that one, this one just doesn't sound right. The more you have to spend time convincing yourself that an answer is right, the greater the chances that what you're thinking about is wrong. You may be actually missing what the question is asking. So don't second guess yourself. If you do have a gut instinct about a question, like if you're asked to answer a particular question, say on a math test, and you notice that it just seems like that number's too large, then go with that gut instinct. It probably would be. So be aware that every answer is worth, or every question is worth the same amount of points. So you don't get any more points for hard questions than you do for easy questions. So don't agonize over these things. Go with your gut instinct. Once you've made that gut decision, it's probably not a good idea to change that unless you have a just cause for changing it. And then the final tip and strategy on this first day of PSAT tips is to remember that often in the answer choices, you'll notice one particular answer might stand out from the others, and you have many that are like similar in nature. One of these answers is not like the others. If you notice that all the answer choices are similar and one of these seems to be standing out, check out that one first. It's very likely that that could be the correct answer. If you check it out, for example, you're looking at choices, say, in a reading passage, and this one just seems to be an outlier, it seems odd, eliminate it first. Go to that as your possible right answer, and then, reasonably look at it and determine whether it's right. Particularly when you're dealing with vocabulary questions. It's always a good strategy to try to answer the question first in your head. What answer would you likely put in there, and then see which of the answer choices most closely aligns with that thinking. All right, so those have been our 6 strategies for day 1. And again, if you go into your College Board website and you begin to look at some of the practice questions that you're given through either the Khan Academy or looking at some practice PSAT tests that are available to you, try to implement these strategies. Some of them, like the 10-second one, you can learn on your own.